I'd moved to the mountains to disappear. No fanfare, no grand escape. Just me, a stack of rejection letters, and the last manuscript I'd ever write. My name's Aidan Brody. Used to be a writer. Used to be someone. Up here, the pines whispered more than people ever did. The only real visitor was the wind, and I liked it that way. But one morning in early spring, something changed. I was sipping black coffee on my porch, nursing another slow day when I saw her. A bear, a full-grown grizzly lumbering out of the tree line, no more than 50 feet from my cabin. My heart skipped. She was massive, scarred, seasoned, wild, and she wasn't alone. A cub stumbled behind her, dragging a bloodied paw, its side streaked with something dark and sticky. Sap, maybe? Number blood. I froze, not out of fear, but confusion. This wasn't normal behavior. Bears don't just walk up to people, much less drag their injured young toward them. She looked at me, not with rage, not even fear. It was trust, as if she'd decided I was safer than whatever else was out there. What the hell do you do when a bear asks for help? She didn't growl, didn't threaten. She just lowered her head, nuzzled the cub forward, and then, get this, sat down. Right there, 10 feet from my porch, watching. I should have run back inside, locked the door, called someone, except I had no cell service and I hadn't spoken to anyone in town for weeks. That was kind of the point. So, against every survival instinct in my body, I stepped down the porch. The cub whimpered. Its front leg was badly torn, the kind of injury that would get infected fast. I crouched low, careful not to make sudden moves, and tried to inspect the wound. The mother stayed still, watching my every move but not intervening. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the years of solitude eating away at my sense. Or maybe I was just tired of not being needed. I cleaned the wound as best I could with boiled water and a torn flannel shirt, made a crude splint from a paint stirrer and some gauze I had left over from a sprained ankle last winter. The cub flinched but didn't bite. Its little eyes locked onto mine, like it understood. For hours the mother stayed put. Occasionally she'd grunt softly, reassuring the cub, or maybe me. When I finished, I backed away slowly. She rose to her feet, approached the cub, sniffed the bandaged paw, and then looked at me once more before leading her little one back into the trees. And just like that, they were gone. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid she'd come back angry, but because something inside me had shifted. For the first time in years, I felt responsible. Not for a deadline, not for a chapter, but for something real, something alive. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about them. Every morning I scanned the tree line. Nothing. Just mist and silence. Then, on the fourth morning, I found a gift on my porch, a pile of fresh trout, neatly arranged like an offering. Bears don't fish for strangers, at least not unless they remember. From that point on, they visited weekly. The cub healed quickly, bounding around while its mother sat like a stoic guardian. Sometimes she'd let the cub come near the porch alone. Once, it licked my hand. I began documenting everything, their behavior, their quirks, the trust that was blooming between us. But something else happened too. I started writing again. Not for publishers, not for money, just because I needed to. I wrote about them, about that first day, about what it means to be trusted by the wild, about what it means to matter again. The manuscript flowed like none before it. Honest, raw, real. Months passed. The cub grew stronger, bolder. The mother remained watchful, but I swear she softened. I even named them. Unoriginal, sure, but fitting. Mama and cub. Then, one day, they stopped coming. Weeks rolled by. Nothing. I told myself it was nature. They had to move on, migrate, find food elsewhere. But deep down, I felt the loss like a bruise. You don't realize how much company matters until you've had it and lost it again. A year later, my manuscript, tentatively titled When the Forest Came Calling, was picked up by a small press, nothing huge, but it found its audience. Letters poured in from people who felt just as alone, just as forgotten, and said my story reminded them that connection still mattered. The book didn't change the world, but it changed mine. One foggy morning, nearly 2 years to the day since I first met them, I woke to a sound on my porch. There she was, Mama, older, a little grayer, but unmistakable. And behind her, 3 cubs. One of them limped slightly, barely noticeable, but I knew that gait anywhere. The cub had returned, and it brought its family. No offering this time, no fear, just a long, quiet stare between old friends. She looked at me, then at her grown child, then turned and vanished back into the forest. I watched them go until the trees swallowed them whole. I never saw them again after that, but I didn't need to, because sometimes the wild doesn't just ask for help. Sometimes it gives it back. Sometimes the most unexpected moments remind us we're not as alone as we think. A wounded creature showing trust, a writer rediscovering his voice, a bond formed without a single word spoken. In a world that often feels cold and disconnected, that bear and her cub didn't just knock on Aiden's door, they broke down the walls he'd built around his heart. And maybe that's the lesson. Healing doesn't always look the way we expect. Sometimes it walks out of the forest, bleeding and limping, asking for help, and leaves behind something greater than we ever imagined. If this story moved you even a little, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that connection is still possible, even in the wildest of places. And as always, thank you for watching The Inspired Inkwell. Until next time, stay human.